All right, family. Black Power. Black Power is the truth hour with General Sarasun said he kicked back. Get your mind ready for some information that's guaranteed to be heavy. We got a powerful one today, family. The Kemetic Egyptian queens who ruled Israel. Nobody talks about that. You see, the mighty hand of the African woman that wielded power and rulership over this land that they call Israel. Nobody never talks about it, but we're going to talk about it today. I'm glad y'all in the house. Before we get started, I want to make sure you get over there. The Patreon, we dropped the Shabaka Stone, one of the most ancient documents in on the earth of dealing with the creation of the universe. You most definitely want to tap into that, family. Over 500 exclusive live stream, and we got another live stream this evening where we're going to be talking. We're going to tap into Solomon and Melchizedek connection to ancient Egypt. I know you want to be in the house, so most definitely tap in. Uh, Make sure you get over to kingseti.com. That's right, online marketplace, official General SETI products, DVDs, t-shirts, hoodies. You can become a member of SETI's YouTube page right here, General SETI, Sarasu and SETI. Tap in, get exclusive videos, and also get his video a thumbs up. All my videos a thumbs up. Like it because you love it. Share with your family and friends. Comment. Just don't say nothing stupid because you gon' get banned. That's right. And so yeah, because and this is they own doing. I love it when you use the people, whom you dealing with. We dealing with the Bible, and we're using their own chronology. We're not making nothing up. We're using the chronology that they give us, and we love it because we know how to count. And obviously they didn't expect that we would, learn how to count. And so now that we got the numbers, we're gonna put the numbers to work. And so a lot of people, understandably, matter of fact, do I got my there's my chronology right there. Hold on, let me grab my chronology. Hold on. Let me grab my chronology, my anthology, and the chronology. That's right. Yeah. And then I got the one. Then I'm gonna break off on them. You feel me with the this Masoretic chronology, the Judaic, Protestant, Catholic chronology. We use their own chronology. We didn't come here and try to put our own chronology on them. No, we ain't gonna do that. Now, let's make this make sense. Because he said Kemetic Egyptian queens who ruled Israel. You see, with a heavy hand, had complete control over Israel and whatever their wishes, would be obeyed. You see, would be obeyed. Now, how do we get to this? Number one. Matter of fact, let me go and get this. Let me get one of these maps up so we can see exactly what's going on at this time. Okay. So right there, we're looking at a map, looking at the Egyptian Empire, the extent of the Egyptian Empire, the first empire in the world. You see, the first empire in the world. Now, what's crazy? It's a lot of nations that's not on that map that that should be on that map. And the early Greeks and Etruscans, Romans would have been in Turkey. All of that would have been under the scope of the Nile Valley. But let's deal with this dating system so we understand what we working with. So if you have to tap in, you tap right on in. Nah, let's see. Nah. Okay. Yeah, I was on the AI. It tried to run from me, but I put it in a headlock. Okay, let me get up here. Let's see. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Now I ask, when did the Israelites enter Canaan after the Exodus? Okay, now after the Exodus, they left Egypt, and they wandered around in the desert for about 40 years, and then they began to conquer the land of Canaan. Okay, and so this Masoretic chronology, which the Masoretic chronology is the chronology of Orthodox Judaism. So I don't want you to think we making it up. This is the dates that they give. Now they say that the two main dates for Israel's entry into Canaan, the early chronology, okay, don't want y'all to think that we put our own chronology in, entry into Canaan around 1406 BCE. 1406 BCE, the Israelites enter Canaan. Okay, and so the AI said this comes straight from the Bible's own timeline. Okay, and so the Exodus date was around 1446 BCE, and so they wandered around the desert for 40 years. So they went into Canaan around 1406 BCE. Okay, and so in the key verse it says, in the 480th year, in the 480th year after the Israelites came out of Egypt, Solomon began to build the temple. Okay, so working backwards from Solomon's reign, gives the mid 15th century BC Exodus. Okay, so that's how they getting a lot of these dates. So, working backwards from when Solomon built the temple, and it says in the 480th year after the Israelites came out of Egypt, and so that gives them a working date, which is around 1406 BCE. Okay, now that's critical. Now they say there's a late date, and so this is archaeological and Egyptian context. I don't want to use this. I want to use it say some of them are, and so they saying in this late date, which is 1230 12 BCE, this model argues Exodus occurred in the 13th century BCE. Israel enters Canaan shortly after, fits the period when Egypt still claims influence but is weakening. And see, that's what they want. That's what they want. Okay, the supporting evidence, the Myrna Patah Stela, 1208 BCE, which is a lie. Where they say they see Israel on some stone. Don't make no sense whatsoever. The only stone in all the stones of Egypt that supposedly mention the name of Israel. Okay, make that make sense. But anyway, and so now, so since you got an early date of 1406 BCE, then you got a late date at 1230 to 1200 BCE. Okay, now the early date, which is the biblical date. Okay, we're gonna take their date. We're not gonna take the they ain't archaeologists. They talk against archaeology. And so I don't want to take the archaeological date. I want to take the date of Judaism, Christianity, whatever date they use, that's the date I want to use. And so we're gonna go with the 1406. Now, what's critical about that? What's very critical, I asked kings of Egypt that would have ruled Israel at that time. Now, Early entry date 1406. Now, this is very, I mean, when you start dealing with, and you don't know all the information, then it becomes like, because they claiming to be exiting Egypt. You see, and Dr. Clark brought this up. How the hell you gonna exit Egypt when it ruled both sides of the Red Sea? You see, you cross the Red Sea and Egyptian armies on the other side of the sea, all in Canaan. Nobody is talking about this. You see, this is the time of empire, and so at 1406 BCE, when the Israelites are supposedly going into Canaan to seize Canaan, Amenhotep II, who reigned 1427 to 1401 BC, was most likely ruling, was the ruling pharaoh at that time. Okay, and he was the son of Tutmosis III, who just put a brutal ass whooping on them up there. How in the hell you gonna come in and do anything when the greatest general on the planet Earth ever, you see, ever, Tutmosis III was even greater than Hannibal, as far as I'm concerned, because Tutmosis III never lost. You see, Tutmosis III had, I don't know how many battles, and he won all of them, and he was kicking so much ass that that's where the term Armageddon come from Tutmosis III. Say the battle was like the end of the earth. So we have to understand that this is at that same time. We using they date, but we got the we got the Egyptian chronology. We're taking the dates that they say that they're coming into Canaan, and then we're putting it side by side with the Egyptian chronology. You see? And so at the time that they're coming in, Amenhotep II is the ruling king. He is very capable of destroying anything that there is. These is ragtags. These ain't even, these is a bunch of nomads that then fled Egypt. These are not warriors. So it's no way you gonna make me believe that these nomads could go up against, at that time, the greatest military king general on the planet. Is no way possible. Okay, but but he would have been, not only though, but it could have, and they say it could have been Tutmosis III. Now it could have been, and now this is what they are saying, it could have been Tutmosis III. Now there's no way you gonna make me believe, because Tutmosis III ruled from 1479. Now remember, they supposedly came in there around 1406. Okay, they came in there around there, and and so he was ruling. Actually, he was ruling right before they came in. It would have been so quiet in that area from them brutal ass kickings that he was putting down on them. I dare not to believe that the Israelites could have come in when it was solely because the Bible speaks of them defeating the Canaanites. The Canaanites themselves, and we're talking about our African family now. We're talking about those who had come in there and conquered our peoples. So we're not talking about we're liberating our people, our African people in there. But this is who the Israelites claim to have been attacking, was the African Canaanites. There's no way you're gonna make me believe, with Tutmosis III, the 18th dynasty pharaohs in charge of Canaan at the time the Israelites are supposedly coming into Canaan, there's no way you gonna make me believe that. And they don't even mention the fact that the pharaohs are ruling Canaan at the time when the Israelites are supposedly taking over Canaan. That's unbelievable. That is totally unbelievable. That's a bunch of BS, and I don't care who say when they say. And so that's very critical that we understand that. But not only if they would have went in, if we would take the late date, which is according to the chronology of archaeology and things of that nature, it would have been Ramesses II. That's no better. That's no better that you're going to make me believe, because they say that somehow this king, it couldn't have been Ramesses, because Ramesses was steady building great megalithic structures on the planet at that time. Hold just a second, family. We back in effect, family. So again, the late date would have been Ramesses. And of course, Ramesses was not washed up under no sea. Lived to be a very old pharaoh. This is documented. Man got statues and monuments all over Egypt. Even his firstborn son, you understand, lived to be of a ripe old age. So that's another fabrication. You see, that's another fabrication. So, we have to understand, let me be clear about that at this time, Egypt is an empire. So cutting through the Red Sea ain't going to do nothing for you, because they rule the whole area. They rule the whole area, okay, all the way up into Canaan. Okay, so we have to make sense of this. Let me put this back in here. Matter of fact, move that one. I'm gonna put this one in. Yeah, so wait a minute, we're gonna work now. Let me work. So that's just the late day. It could have been Ramesses II, if you take the late day. And then you got his son Merneptah, who reigned from 1213 to 1203 BCE, author of the Merneptah Stela, 1208. Okay, so I don't believe, and that's another fabrication. That's when they came up with the latter date, because obviously once people with common sense start putting the information together, then you busted. You can no longer put that lie out there. Now, what's critical now, I had to also put in there and then SETI let me see, SETI first slightly earlier. Okay, could have been in there, but that's hypothetical. We're gonna stay with the earlier date. Now I put in there because we talking about how long did they rule. So if they went in there around 1406 BCE, this is according to the Bible chronology. Okay, this is according to the Masoretic Bible, Judaic chronology, accepted by Protestant and Catholic for the most part. These are their dates. So at 1406, so these would be all the kings that rule, and we're gonna get to the queens. We're gonna get to the mighty queens who rule Canaan or Israel. Let's deal with it. If you want to call it Israel, and see the fact that it's not called Israel, they want to look for some Israel on some stone tablet, but that should have been known it should have been written, across every every stone that had, mentioned Canaan or whatever. They never mentioned Israel. So if they were in there, then they should have been acknowledged. But there was no Israel, and we are talking about these would have been the kings that ruled Canaan or Israel at the period of time when they say they had come into Canaan. That would have been you talking about Tutmosis the fourth? Tutmosis the fourth? Wait a minute. End of the 18th dynasty, you would have had Tutmosis the fourth. You would have had Amenhotep the third. This is in the 18th dynasty. Okay, you talking about 14? Wait a minute. Let me get the dates. Well, they ain't got all the dates in here, but this would have been all the kings that ruled after 1406 BCE, and that is the time when the Israelites supposedly went into Canaan. Tutmosis the fourth, Amenhotep the third, Akhenaten, Sennacherib, Tutankhamun, Ai, and Horemheb, and that's just the 18th dynasty. So all 7 of those kings would have been rulers over Israel at the time in which they entered Canaan. And at the bare minimum, because I know they didn't take it over as soon as they got in there, they had the war. But at the same time, they would have had the war with the Egyptian army. So, but they never mentioned the Egyptian army in any of them battles. You see, they never mentioned the Egyptian army. See, they slipped up. They slipped up big time with that, and it really ain't no way to get around that. Then you got the 19th dynasty. So you would have had, this is the empire. This is the age of empire when Egypt ruled Canaan, which they say is Israel. So the 19th dynasty, it would have been 6 kings because it ruled again. How long did it rule? Let's get the clear number. I think it was 350. It was 350 years. So 350 years it ruled Canaan. Okay, 350 years it ruled Canaan. And so I just went over the I went over here. Let me get back down where I was. Okay, here you go. Back up here. So I just went over the 7 kings of ancient Egypt that would have ruled Canaan in the 18th dynasty. That's just the 18th dynasty. We talking about 350 years. And so then you got the 19th dynasty, which you got 6 kings in that dynasty: Ramesses the first, Seti the first, Ramesses the second, Merneptah, Amesses, and Seti the second. So you had 6 kings in the 19th dynasty that would have ruled over Canaan. Okay, and then you go into the 20th dynasty. Then you have Scepter, what is his name? Tolosret. Then you had Set Naket, Ramesses the third, Ramesses the fourth, Ramesses the fifth, and Ramesses the sixth ruled over Canaan. That was 7 kings in the 20th dynasty, 6 kings in the 19th dynasty, and then you had 7 kings in the 18th dynasty. All of those kings would have ruled over Canaan in that period in time when this was an empire. But at the same time, even though you see Canaan on the map in the Bible, they saying it's Israel. And even if they haven't conquered Canaan, they most definitely would have had to deal with the Egyptian armies. And they would have had to defeat all those kings, you know, in different reigns of these kings. They would have had to contend with the Egypt, which you don't hear about none of that in the Bible whatsoever. You don't even hear about in the Bible that Egypt is ruling over Canaan at the time in which they supposedly conquers Canaan. How do they conquer Canaan and don't defeat the Egyptian army who is in control of Canaan? And why would they cross the Red Sea and go to the other side where the Egyptians are in control of that area too? That don't make no sense. So we in sitting now. Let's get to these queens now, because this is an empire, and that means that these queens right here would have had sole control over the state of Israel. These African queens, and we're gonna start with first and foremost. We're gonna start with Hatshepsut. Now Hatshepsut ruled in that time, and she would have had, and Hatshepsut didn't play no games. She bust heads too. She sent her army out there to bust heads too. That's just what it was, you know, because they had attacked Egypt, and so wasn't nobody playing no games with them at all. So when we start talking about the queen, the great queen, now I think almost Nefertari ruled before they got in, before well, I mean, she put hands, but at 406 she wasn't in there. But Hatshepsut, yeah, Hatshepsut would have been in there. Yeah, Hatshepsut would have been there. She would have had rule over, you know, Canaan. She would have had rule over Canaan. So she most definitely had her hands in there. And we see Tai, who ruled from 1398 to 1351. She had you know, royal control over that land mass. That means if she say jump, you would have had to jump, or you wouldn't have had no legs. You see what I'm saying? You would have been missing your legs. And so that's what it was. So at this time, we had African empresses that had control over the state of Israel that they call Canaan. And the Bible is not mentioning this. And so this is very powerful that we learn the chronology of the Bible and, you know, and use their own dates. You see, and use their own dates. But Hatshepsut, Queen T, and Nefertari II also would have most definitely had control over Israel at that time. Okay, this is based on the Masoretic text. So all you have to do is you can go on and look it up and put the Masoretic chronology in there. And Masoretic only means Orthodox Judaism. That means you ain't getting no dates, making up your own dates. You working with the dates that they give you. And once you take them dates and you compare them to Egyptian chronology and make the comparison, you will see at the time that, you know, the state of Israel was on the planet. Egypt ruled Israel. Okay, you can call it Canaan, you can call it Israel, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But at that time, it was a part of the Egyptian empire. So you mean to tell me you left Egypt, you went into Canaan, you conquered, but yet and still Egypt controlled. So you never left Egypt. Technically, because Canaan was a part of the empire, so technically it was part of Egypt. So you never left Egypt, is what you telling me. So this don't make no sense. You're going to go across the Red Sea and they got armies all on the other side of the Red Sea. So you got to make this make sense, you know. And the more we do concrete chronology and we make a comparative study or comparative study of both chronology, is not adding up. And that's why I believe they went in there and said that they saw Israel on the Myrna Patah. They tried to push it up. But even then, They still was in control of Canaan. Even then, if you go with the late date, it was still, about 8. You talking about the late Ramesses, you talking about the 19th dynasty, also the 20th dynasty, you still talking about, 10, no, it was more or less than 10. No, it was about 10. If you still talking about 10 pharaohs that still had control over the state of Israel, you can call it Canaan if you want. You see, the Bible don't talk about that. It don't talk about that at all. And it's a fact. They got so many graves. They got so many tombs. They left so many. It's there. And so the Egyptians got more evidence of being in Canaan than the Israelites got. That's a fact. That's a fact. They got more evidence. They got more tombs, Egyptian tombs that they didn't found than they didn't found Israelite tombs. So this is clear, family. So, this is very powerful that we is even able to say, and people don't want to, the power of these African empresses. And these are empresses, and they never say that. I'm the first person that say this is Empress T. Go anywhere in here and somebody call Empress T, Empress Nefertari. These is empresses. They are ruling empires. They are queen of Egypt, but they are empress of the other nations in which they have conquered. You see, they become the empress of the other nations that have been conquered. But at the time of these empresses, African empresses, there are no Caucasian or Asian emperors on the planet yet. You see, they don't have no emperor. They don't have. Egypt is the first empire. So it hurt ego to speak that African women got that much power that their hand can reach in 3, 4, 5 different nations as a ruler and call shots like that. You see, and you read about these. They don't even count in history at this time. You talking about at the time of the New Kingdom, Greece didn't even exist. Greece didn't even exist in the New Kingdom. Sumeria was mud buildings over there. They didn't have no power like that. So there was no other nations on the planet that even existed at this time. They're just the facts. So we're proud to bring this information to the people. All you had to do is research it and bring it up. Ask, about and start your own research in chronology. All you had to do is go on AI. It'll bring up the Masoretic chronology for you. It'll make the comparison for you on the Egyptian. And it'll tell you the kings that's ruling at the time that they claim to be in there. Now, who lying? When the Egyptians got evidence, physical monuments, and these people can't find nothing. So who really telling the truth? We got to figure that one out. It shouldn't be hard. Yeah, it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be hard. But anyway, family, I appreciate y'all, man, being here. I agree. I appreciate y'all, family. I'll get black with y'all in a minute. I'm coming back. I ain't stopped yet. You feel me? I'll be black this evening. Arm yourself with knowledge. Get over there to Patreon. I got that Shabaka stone. We dropping this. I'm about to go over here and drop this Solomon Melchizedek. And so if y'all want to go on over there and work with me, because I'm about to do the Solomon Melchizedek, the Kemetic connection, come on over there and I'll be back on YouTube in a little bit. All right, family. See you in a minute. Black Power.